Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here with you today. I am Ben Eubanks, your host, and this is We're Only Human. Before I tell you about our guest today, I just want to say thank you for listening, and I'd love for you to take a minute, share an episode with someone that you think might be appreciative of it, that might benefit from it, that might be inspired by it, just like you are. Take a minute, leave a review, add a comment, share it on LinkedIn with your community, the people around you, because for me, that is the best and highest praise. That is how and why I do what I do, because I know that it's reaching someone that needs it, and the best way to do that is you. We don't have a marketing budget. You are the opportunity we have to reach out there, and I appreciate every one of you who do that on a regular basis. Today, you're going to hear from Lane McFarland. Got to meet Lane recently at events, and he is a talent executive at a company called Flashpoint. Sharp guy, and he was talking about AI, and I loved hearing his perspective on this because he was thinking about big problems that we can solve and using this to really emphasize the human and not replace it. And so let's jump into this conversation with Lane and learn something about AI and how we can use it to create better workplaces.
Don't conduct your analysis in isolation because data is so incredibly powerful.
Not defending just the tribe, but defending the organization.
Those creative people that you really want to keep empowered, keep excited, keep motivated, keep thinking.
A good experience pays dividends down the line.
Stereotypes tend to break down in proximity.
Welcome to We're Only Human, a podcast about human resources, business, technology, and the workplace. My name is Ben Eubanks, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Hey everyone, welcome to We're Only Human. I'm Ben Eubanks, your host. I'm so glad you're here with us, and I'm looking forward to a fun conversation today. We're going to get into AI and what it means for us as talent and HR leaders. We're going to really plumb the depths of this. See, I was at an event recently in Austin for HRA, and there was another speaker on the agenda that was talking about AI use cases and applications, and it just got me pumped up because, as I was telling our guest a few minutes before we started, so much of what I see out there is either overhyped, it's negative and scary, or it's just wildly overcomplicated in a way that's like you need a PhD in computer science to have a conversation. And none of us have the time for that. We've got real work to do, real good people work to do. So we're going to get into those things today. So Lane McFarland's here with me. I'm so excited for this conversation. Lane, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get into the fun stuff we're going to be chatting through today, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, perfect. So, like you said, my name is Lane McFarland. I'm the Vice President of Talent Management at Flashpoint, which is a global threat data and intelligence company. We have around 350 team members in 8 countries. So I lead the global talent strategy, which includes performance management, learning development. I also drive a lot of cross-functional operational objectives. I've spent the last 15 plus years leading operations, people strategy, HR, and development across a variety of industries, from high growth startups all the way through VC and PE backed companies.
Excellent. Tremendous. And what's something about Lane that's not in your official bio?
I spent around 2 years doing executive protection work, physical, for CEOs across the world.
Oh my goodness. I want to go into that one. That would be a much more interesting job than HR probably some days. And some days you're like, thank goodness no one's shooting at me. I'm really glad to be in the HR job. So tremendous. Excellent. Okay. So as I teased for the audience there a minute ago, our bodyguard here, Lane, was at this event recently with me at HRA talking about AI applications. Tell me more about that session you were leading and why you even said yes to that session in the first place.
Yes. So it was practical AI and HR. So the reason that I was excited to actually do it was because there's a lot of stigma associated both with HR and with AI.
Mm-hmm.
So there are concerns with people from security and privacy. There's also this concern about technical incompetence and the abilities of them being able to upskill their knowledge enough to benefit the org. And there's also this impending concern across the world. We see this with layoffs all over, and targeting those administrative functions. That's been a thing for the HR world for the last decade, and it's not a concern that's going down. So more and more people are trying to find better ways, faster ways to do their job, and AI is a perfect opportunity for that.
Tremendous. So if the audience is listening in here, I want them to hear that you gave a little bit of hope, I think, in that. Like there's a little bit of hope in this. There's some practical side of this, but there's also some good practical examples of things we can do in this. Not just here's the history of AI or here's the future in 20 years, here's what's possible. But we have problems today, Lane. We've got to solve some big stuff. Everybody's got some issues. You talked about learning, you talked about performance. You've got an issue this week that you and your team are probably trying to figure out how to take care of. And so I'm excited to get into some of these things today. So let's just dive in. What are some of the practical tips, the practical takeaways, or the use cases that you were sharing there?
So one of the biggest ones was you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So these are things that HR people, no matter their function, whether it's talent acquisition, HR ops, the people experience side, the true compliance, these are things they're doing every day. So there are ways to better that for both internal team and then also your customers, your employees. So some of the most practical ones was utilizing what's already native in the system. We see a lot of conversations around the Gen AI, around ChatGPT and Gemini versus Perplexity and Claude and all these different organizations that have. But people are often overlooking what's already integrated into their system, native. So you have the capability of uncovering what you already do and try to find a way to do it either a little better or a little faster for your team. So a good example is we were getting hammered, as most HR professionals do, with questions, benefit, payroll, questions about taxes and forms, all the way to how do I put in PTO into our HRIS. So we were physically having to answer those questions, type out the answer, point them towards the document that tells them how to do it. So with our knowledge management system, we had the capability of integrating an AI chatbot into Slack, which is our main communication platform, and it taking a first pass only based on the knowledge that we gave it. So it didn't use the Gen AI type of information from the open source. It's only using our information. So it was able to give that first pass to answer questions based on what we had. And then we only jumped in if they needed that human touch or correction if the AI got it wrong, because it does. And what we saw, we've been tracking this since the day we thought we were going to do it. We were getting around 215 questions a month, just pure based on standard questions. They weren't very robust or concerning. And we've been implementing for 18 months. We're down to 11 a month. So from 211 down to 11.
Now, 11, that's 11 that require a human answer. Is that what you're
That's
saying?
11 at all.
At
So
all?
what,
Okay.
yeah, so what we saw was the AI was pushing more and more people to using it natively in the platform as
Mhm.
going towards the knowledge first rather than to the person first.
Ah, okay. So just you were leading them to the fishing pole and to the bait and to the fishing hole versus here's the person that's going to teach you how to fish. Well, it gets you right to the resources you need. And I don't know where that metaphor came from, somewhere. I don't know. Okay. I want to ask you something interesting based on that. We'll go into some more use cases in a minute. But one of the things that I hear from HR leaders is, okay, listen, we're doing this, we're saving this time. Someone is not now answering 215 questions, in that time frame. Is the value in the time saved? Or is in the value in the time redirected to something else for whoever was answering those questions before? Does that make sense?
You nailed that perfectly.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we've seen, and it's been a pull or maybe a driver for a lot of people in our org is they want to be more strategic is the nice buzzword to use. But what they really mean is they want to focus on the non-monotonous part of their job. So when they didn't have to answer these questions manually, having to uncover it, find the link, share the link, summarize it themselves, they were able to focus us more as a strategic part of the organization and not just an administrative function. So their time was redirected towards better planning, better thoughtful conversations, better employee engagement, more personal touch that they didn't have before to not only elevate the perspective of the HR function in the organization, but also elevate what we can do to make the organization better.
I love that. That's such a fun thing to hear. The thing that I have struggled with is I have lots of friends, you may as well, on the vendor side that are like selling these things and they talk about, we can save you all this time. Like, yeah, but teams hear that and they just hear, oh, wow, they can get by without me. Like they can get by with fewer people on their team. And sure, there are companies that are going to do that. There are stories in the news of companies trying that in a variety of functions across the business, not just HR. But at the same time, if I said, listen, if I had an hour extra a week, I would put it into this high value, high leverage activity. And suddenly when that opportunity presents itself, I dive into that and create new value that I couldn't yesterday. And that's what I'm hearing from you is the team is creating new value, new connections, new stakeholder relationships, really going deep in those areas where before it was, man, someday I'd love to, but for now I've got to finish this investigation, post that rec, answer this question, whatever that specific use case is answering questions, but we're going to get into some more in a minute, but they get stuck doing those other just busy parts of our jobs.
It really is. There was such an internal conflict that our team had with that thought of, oh, I'm going to make myself replaceable. But the reality was it allowed them, it didn't even force them, it allowed them to up level what they were, not only to the organization, but to themselves. We saw our people that were doing talent acquisition 24 hours, just nonstop sourcing, scheduling, interviewing, screening. And then they were able to shift more into a talent partner. So they created the relationships, understood the culture of the teams, and started trying to find the right culture add to the team rather than box checker, scheduler.
Rather than, are you breathing?
Yes.
Can you show up sober on Monday? Yes,
Yeah.
we've got one. Excellent. So if I heard you correctly, you said, listen, we could go in the direction of all these other tools and things out there, but the first place to start, if anyone's listening out there taking notes from what Lane's sharing, it's start with the tools you have, because there may be some AI things built into that. I heard a friend used to say, gather a bouquet of flowers from those within reach. Like, start with the things that are right there at your fingertips. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So there's one great use case and example of just let's answer these questions that none of us ever want to answer again. I can't even say it with a straight face. The audience can't see me laughing, but I'm like trying not to laugh so hard because I'm thinking that we had a guy on our team that asked every month, and I'm not kidding, for 4 months straight, he asked, how do I change my 401k deferral? And you might be thinking, well, he was waiting to decide. No, he changed it every month, but he came back every time asking, how do we do that? And I think I was doing what you said earlier, where I was just eventually doing it for him because I was tired of him asking, instead of redirecting him back, like, nope, here's your login, and like getting him back to that starting point so he could do it himself and stop asking me those things. So maybe the 4th month I told him that I don't know what I did to get him to extinguish that behavior, but finally did that. So all right, so there's a great use case. I love answering questions. That's one of the things that all of us do that none of us got into HR to do, but we have to as part of our jobs. Take that off our plate. We can do more valuable things. Any other examples or use cases you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I would always start with what the need is. What are you trying to solve? Because I'm not sure about everybody else, but if I get kicked off on a project, I write a 100-page document before anybody even gets a chance to tell me what's included in it. So there should always be some clarifying questions. So if you start with what you're trying to solve, it's very easy to decide whether it's something that is native in a tool or you need to redirect and go outside. So another use case is the development. So our team was using a Gen AI model that we have cleared with the organization. We're in security, so no shadow. So once we determined exactly what we were using, the team was identifying some of their development needs, not only to up level where they were currently at and make their job easier, but what it would lead them to as we start making all these operational improvements inside HR. So one of the ones was data science. And it's a clear stamp to put on something, but inside the HR world, it's not very common. We're doing data analysis and people analytics. So this person wanted to up level their understanding of data science, particularly working inside Excel and Sheets. So as his leader, I couldn't spend 8 hours a week teaching him, and I don't want to point somebody towards an LMS course if they don't learn that way. So what we did was we did a dual perspective. He utilized a custom gem, and I can call out that we use Gemini, a custom gem to train him with immediate feedback, to where if he encountered a problem in the project that I assigned him, that would not only up level his understanding of our people data and how we do analytics and how we report on it, but it was allowing him to solve the problem he has and then educate him on why there was a problem, what issue he had. And the reason that I said it was custom is because with all the open source information, if anybody's ever dropped a formula from Excel into AI of any of them, it's always wrong. It says this formula exists, and you put it in there, that formula doesn't exist, you can't use it. So this was an easy way to give it 10,000 pages of Excel and Sheets formulas, including app scripting, to where it could solve the problem he needed quickly, because we don't have time to wait around. And it also educated him on how he made the error and how he could fix that immediately and how he could actually learn a little bit more about better ways to do it. So we used it purely for development, and now it's become a consistent go-to when reviewing data. If there is an error, there isn't even the first pass of, hey, Lane, can you look at this for me? Because sometimes I do have the time to help with those things, and other times I don't. So instead of waiting around, mulling over, letting those wheels spin, or popping on overnight, he jumps right into his tool, his custom developed tool that knows him and how he works, to give him an immediate response and educate him on how to fix it in the future.
So in my head, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. How long did it take you to put together this entire framework for this development opportunity for this person?
3 minutes.
Okay, that's almost embarrassing how quickly that. Did you take 2 minutes to at least stretch
I
between,
took, I took 2 minutes to listen. That's what it was.
Yes. Okay.
The way that we did it wasn't my suggestion to use AI. It was, we first uncovered what his problem was. His problem is he needed education. And we wanted to see, how can I educate him? And then we looked at the capability that I had to break out that time for this specific project with a deadline. And he said, I'm already using AI. How could I make it better to not have all these issues? Oh, wow. I talked to the IT director about this. Let me link you two up so you can understand how to make your own.
Okay. So the reason I asked that is because you mentioned the other, I heard the other counterpoint of, 8 hours a week to train them or whatever else, giving feedback and working through this. It's not that you don't want to do those things, but now when we do get together, it's a sharper, more focused conversation versus all the build up. It's like in the learning world, it's like a flipped classroom sort of experience where you do the reading before you show up, and together we do the social learning piece together versus me just telling all of you the thing you should have read before you got here, right? It makes those times you do get together probably more productive and more valuable, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, and it drives it more towards that kinesthetic learning. So he's getting the real-time work and stretching those muscles and learning how to do it at the same time he's getting real-time feedback without having to wait for the project review time to be scheduled.
You talked about the importance of honing in on the problem you're trying to solve. And that's one of the things that's, again, it confounds me a little bit because I've said this already. I'll say it again. Anyone out there who hears me that's building AI stuff, I respect you. I appreciate you. But you talk about what the thing is, not the problem it solves way too often. So Lane, I'm sure you've not heard this word, but if you have spent more than 5 minutes looking around LinkedIn lately, agents are everything and agents are everywhere. And my favorite thing to say to an HR audience is, how many of you woke up this morning and said, you know what I really need? An agent. And there's not a hand that goes up. Like, how many of you would say, we need to get better at tailoring how we communicate benefits to our people? Yes. Or tailoring how we talk about development opportunities to the individual person? Yes. And all these other use cases that matter in the problem. So I'm glad you talked about that one, because that's always my emphasis, my encouragement is know the problem. Don't get swayed by, oh, this uses the latest model of ChatGPT or whatever else. No. Get to the problem you're trying to solve, because you may find out that the best answer is half a head count on your team, or it could be some cool AI model or something else. But until you actually figure the problem out, you can't get to what solutions may fit that actual issue.
Yeah.
So focus on the problem. So 3 minutes to figure this piece out, right? Make the connections, everything else, get that going. For me, you said one of the responsibilities you have is around learning development overall. And so I think you're probably a little more in the weeds than someone who's generally over HR, and learning is one of the hats they have to wear. But to me, it seems like this gives us the opportunity to really start tailoring that. Just like in this example, we can start tailoring this in almost infinite varieties to different people around the business. Or we can even say, hey, listen, we've figured out that in 2 years, we're going to need a large portion of people with X skill in the business. We're going to start making sure that anyone has access to those things to develop that skill, because that's going to future-proof you to the degree we can within this business. But just start building those things at scale versus always feeling you're behind, always trying to catch up, always just trying to produce more content, when we know that people learn really well, use kinesthetics, what you called a minute ago, like hands-on. Let's let them experience this, because you learn so much through that type of experience versus just being told one more thing.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that we've recognized just over the last probably 2 years, because everything changes all the time, especially when you start adding new technology everywhere, and this next best tool, and this one's the most advanced, this one has some lab with air cool, water cool. Okay, great. What can we use now? So one of the things that we found were people were less interested in growing the specific skills they had to do the perfunctory part of their job. They wanted to know, what do I need to learn in my current role to get me to the next level that I want to get at? And you don't have the time. Even we're a small team. We have 5 people across 350. So even on the talent side, we only have 2 people that are around the development side. So we can't spend the time doing a gap analysis, understanding where they want to go, whether it's here or elsewhere, and dedicating some level from our LMS to creating a mentorship. So we're able to guide them in that fashion, utilizing AI as a personal coach. So not only do we have it native inside our LMS, we also have it available from all the guides we have in our knowledge management system. We have ways for people to reach out based on a gap that they've identified and seeing if we can create a link. So we're still the human in the loop. But if their goal is to grow a skill that no one has at my organization and it's not available on the LMS, what route should I go? So self-service. And we can give those recommendations. We can give those introductions.
Lane will personally develop a curriculum to get you that skill you need. Don't worry, like he's gonna figure it out. I didn't put you on the hook there, I don't think, probably not. That's one of the things that we saw in our research, that phenomenon you mentioned. So people are really interested, like, sure, there's interest in performing and excelling in their role, but we see in the data that we collect around, we asked learners about, if you had a choice, do you want to learn a skill for now or for later? You're like, I'm really interested in learning that skill to build me up for later. And we see that woven through the research where candidates are like, don't just look at me for my skills today, Lane, but look at me for my skills, my potential for the future. So people are thinking about those sorts of things, and that's exciting and encouraging. Here's the downside. So while the majority of employees say my company develops me for the job I have now, only about 17% say my company's helping me develop the skills I need for future success. So they want that, but there's a gap between that desire and the actual reality for a lot of companies that are producing that. And I love this story you're sharing because this is an example of how we can actually do it. We can make that happen for those teams that are too busy just trying to keep all the balls juggling in the air. It gives them a chance to start taking that on and saying, how do I get Ben ready for what's next for him, and help him see those career paths and know which skills to develop and work on those strengths he already has and build those up. Okay, so I want to talk about you work for a company that does threat assessment. And so you probably hear about the word risk on a regular basis, if I had to guess. Talk about risk and scary and all the things that people talk about around AI. Isn't bias everywhere? Is it just going to ruin everything and make everything fall apart? Like what's the balance between all this optimism, Lane, and trying to be a realist? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I tell everybody, like, if you like the outdoors and you want to go on a hike, are you afraid of the mountain that you don't know exists? That's a hard one to actually process. So there's two different fears that people have. Is one is the internal fear of this is going to replace my job, and the other one is the external fear, whether that's publicized by movies and media or some of the things that we've already seen happening, and the catastrophizing of the future potential 25 years down the road is less impactful than we're seeing right now on people where they're afraid. They're afraid of their job's going to be offset. I think it was a year and a half ago, one of the big four announced that they were not going to backfill any HR roles. They're only going to utilize AI to solve their problems. And I think there was a huge blow up inside the HR world where everyone said, that's a bad idea. And so we've already seen that company redirect everything after that public announcement, because the reality is in 1986, Excel solved math. And we didn't lose mathematicians. We didn't lose the accountants. We just stopped keeping that calculator on our desk. So now we are able to do the job we were doing before faster and better by adopting a technology that at the time would have been scary.
Can I give you another math metaphor that I love to use when I'm talking about AI? I don't think I've shared it here on the podcast before. So there's a gentleman named Alex Haraguchi, and he's a Japanese man. And a couple years ago, just to prove it could be done, he memorized pi to 100,000 digits. And he sat there in a public forum and just repeated those digits out. He like made up a song in his mind to keep going, like so many at a time, and repeated for 18 hours straight, other than just drinking a glass of water, repeated 100,000 digits of pi. And I say, that's incredible. That stretches what we thought was impossible. But if I had enough spaces on my calculator, as you said, or Excel, I could do that immediately. And so our best use isn't in just doing something that computer could do, but doing something else that's more valuable. And in our context, it could be answering those routine questions. It could be, let's get this general curriculum for data science. It's very vague and high level and isn't going to help that person actually do that thing when they're done. They're just going to learn the history of it. Let's get into the weeds. And so that's the difference between the big abstract idea or whatever else and the ability to get really tailored and connected to something specific, that personalization level that AI lets us have in all these varieties of contexts at work. That's what really excites me, because every good HR person, every good talent person, every people pro, if they could wave their magic wand, they would create that environment around the people anyway to say, you are appreciated here, Lane. We see what you bring. We want more of that. We're thinking about what's next for your career. We want to help you perform. We're paying you at a level that's commensurate with your experience, and we're getting you ready for this next thing, like all those things. And yet we're all just busy running around with our hair on fire a little bit trying to get things done day to day.
I mean, we live in the world of HR, so privacy and security is the utmost thought. And so there's something that people tend to not think of when they're so fearful of AI taking their job, is there needs to be a human in the loop. Just like any security protocol. I mean, we have analysts that adopt a criminal persona to infiltrate the deep dark web hacktivists and get that knowledge, get that understanding, the intelligence that we need to make the world safer. They have safeguards. They have a human in the loop. They have a process that they're required to follow. And it's the same thing when AI comes into the mix. Once the agentic starts really kicking off, you can't just have an agent solve from start to finish without a human in the loop, because it's a computer. You wouldn't have an HRIS that operated autonomously without having a human there double checking the information. We see it all over where there are threat activists that are putting up fake profiles, fake applying to job, fake interviewing, getting the job, and then getting money filtered somewhere only for finally to meet the hiring manager and go, oh, you're not a person, or you're a different person than I originally interviewed. Well, that's because they added all of these AI features through this whole process without even having a human in the loop to test the fact, is this a human being? And so there is an innate fear because of what we see people utilizing it for in the wrong way. I think you presented this at the HR conference where you said there's this whole interview one where people put it up left to right with their resume in there. They've tested it. Now it's answering questions. They're just reading it. That's a huge thing, especially in the talent acquisition world, that you have to be mindful of. But it could be utilized better. You could do that for interview prep before the interview. You could have it analyze how you think you did based on what you remember your answers to be. It's not appropriate to have it during. So we can utilize the tool in the right way by putting the human in the loop instead of removing ourselves from it completely.
Feels like to me, and you can either like thumbs up or thumbs down verbally on this one, but it feels like the teams that are using more and more of that to keep people at arm's length, to keep candidates at arm's length, to stay out of touch with the human, those are the ones you start to see in the headlines where this enterprise company replaced a couple hundred of their HR people with an AI bot. Like that's when that starts to happen because you're already doing it anyway. And you're not saying, hey, I'm doing this in order to do that, or I'm letting this piece of the process go because it's not high value in order to focus on this other area where there's a high value outcome that I can't forego or I can't shortcut. Do you think that's fair?
Yes. We saw, I think it was probably, I want to say 4.5, almost 5 years ago. I remember applying for jobs at the time. And I remember seeing these organizations that said, record your response to all of these questions, send it in to us. And if we like it, we'll then schedule a live interview. And my first question was, why? Why would I record my answers to the questions you're going to ask me? That seems a little ridiculous. And we're seeing it still now, but now AI is the one doing the analysis on it. But the reality of it is, do I want to be at that company? And so you're really filtering people out in this process by not only automating, but removing the human part because we're humans. This is great talking to you. I love doing this. If you said I'm going to send an AI bot to interview so I can release it on my podcast, that's a numbers game. I'm not talking to you.
This is a great deep fake over here. You can't tell, Lane, that I'm a total deep fake.
I have scanners and everything.
My hands are above the shoulders, so you know that I'm real.
Exactly. But that's what I mean is we have all of these things that are coming out where people are removing the human aspect. We're in the human business. We're in the people business, not even just in HR. If you're in sales or GTM or engineering, you're in the people business. So you need to make sure you remain a human and have that human interaction. And you can utilize AI where you need to help support you in that process.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that perspective as a candidate going through this because we see both sides. Like, I understand why someone might make that decision, but at the same time, I can't agree with it necessarily, right? I understand their pressure, their stress, they're being pushed to do that. But when I ask an HR audience about this sort of thing, like, how many of you want to work for a company that will not actually speak with you or engage with you live, whether it's in a Zoom conversation or on the phone or anything? It's all automated. How do you want to work for that company? And I'm like, no, because I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. I want to find out if I'm going to, this bit of life I'm about to give them that I can't get back. You can't say, no, I want those 3 years back. They're gone. And we want to know it's the right choice. It's a candidate, regardless of what job you're applying for. We want to know that they're respected and seen for the people they are. You said that earlier on, they're thinking about the next role in a development perspective. That same thing applies as a candidate and throughout the entire employee life cycle. People want to know that we're seeing them for who they are, for what they can be. And if we're just saying, nope, the bot said you're a 0 and a 1 and that's it, then that doesn't excite me at all. If that's where it's going, I probably need to get out right now because I'm going to be frustrated long term.
I agree. And we've seen it over the years in different forms. It just had a different label on it. We have ATS scanners that did keyword recognition and automatic filtering. Now we have AI in the loop as part of the AI or the ATS filtering. So these are all things that we've encountered before. It's just a little bit different now.
Yeah, just a different flavor of that same thing, trying to make pursuit of efficiency, right? And there's a difference in being efficient when you're producing widgets on an assembly line. That's probably celebrated. When you're producing people outcomes, striving only for efficiency is leaving some of the biggest value on the table. So
yes, you saw that in the manufacturing industry when robots took over the assembly line workers' jobs, fired all the assembly line workers, then the machines started breaking and the company went, oh no, we don't have anybody to fix it.
Where are those people? Where'd they go?
Exactly. And then they hire them back and upskill them to then fix the thing that was doing the job they'd been doing for 10 years. So now all of a sudden they have more skills, it's more productive for the company, and they're also continuing to grow in their own career.
That's really cool. Okay, man, I've enjoyed this so much. I'm having a lot of fun. So for people out there listening to this conversation today, this isn't just for us to kick around my love for AI and the conversation broadly about it, but it's to hear some of the outcomes, some of the approaches from you who have been doing this as a leader, doing this day to day, using these tools to create and unlock more value, as we talked about earlier. If you're going to give them a piece of advice or recommendation, I don't care if you double down on something you've shared already, or if it's something else you haven't mentioned yet, we're like, oh, don't forget this. What would you share with them to close today?
Be curious and be teachable. And I can use a perfect example. We were signing on a new ATS. Our other one did not keep up with the technology. I'm not a recruiter, so I relied on the manager on my team to really drive this. And we approached it for all the reasons that it could save us time. The technology was there. There was no AI in the conversation. And then as we started getting more progressive through there, they said, what are some of the things you wish we had? So, wow, automatic schedule would be great. And, oh, wow. So 3 weeks later, we had an AI automated scheduler inside the system just because we opened the opportunity. It was something on their roadmap 3 months in advance, but then they saw a critical opportunity for a beta test with a new customer who was technologically advanced in their thinking. And then from there, we got another AI assistant model in there. And the feedback we gave them was we wanted to be in the loop. We wanted to be the human in the loop. We didn't want an ATS scanner that did keyword recognitions. We wanted our recruiter to enter GTM in the search, go to market, and it would pull sales, revenue, other words that weren't just keyword recognitions that you would find from a traditional ATS scanner. So the curiosity we had, or they had, by asking us, what do you wish we provide, or what do you wish existed? We gave that to them. And from their openness, allowed us to explain why. Why are we trying to do this? In our world, we get 1,000 applicants for one role per day. And it's very difficult for two people to go through 1,000 applications a day, but we still want to make sure we're not missing out on people that are not doing a keyword recognition software and updating words. We want to find the person that is the best fit for the role and a better cultural add to the team. And we don't want to close ourselves off. So be curious and be teachable.
Be curious, be teachable. Love that. Great set of takeaways for us here at the end of this episode of We're Only Human. Lane, if someone wants to connect with you, wants to follow you, wants a little more of that pep that's in your step and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn, send me a request, pop a little add note on there. I will say I am always open to starting conversations. That's how you and I got connected.
Yep.
So always open to help people develop and grow. And I learn every time I talk to somebody.
I can verify Lane lets strange people reach out on LinkedIn, and he did say yes. So there we go. I did send a message, though. It wasn't a blind outreach. It was a, hey, I respect you, appreciate your work. So good stuff. This is such a great conversation. I'll make sure to get that link into the show notes for your LinkedIn profile so they can reach out and connect with you there. Thank you so much for not just sharing the technical side of this, but the heart behind it. The importance of keeping the human piece in there. I did not want to forget that, and I'm so glad you delivered. Thanks, Lane.
For having me.
To everybody else out there, I hope you got some good notes, some good encouragement there. Be curious, right? Be teachable. Don't forget that critical piece of this. It's a big conversation about technology, but ultimately the best HR people are going to be both of those things if they're going to do it well. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll catch you again next time on We're Only Human. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm honored to have you as a listener. If you enjoyed this episode, please take 10 seconds to rate it at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, if you know a friend that could benefit from today's conversation, please pass it their way. After all, a rising tide lifts all ships. To see show notes, sponsor information, and our full show archives, visit onlyhumanshow.com.